Good evening and welcome to the Shine with Tish podcast. Hi, listeners. It is your friend Tish, aka Tish Delicious. I am here with one of my sister friends. You know, when you have one of those friends that is so tight, so cool, it's more than just a friend, it's like a
It's
sister.
a
I am here
sisterhood, yes.
with Sharon Joyner. And Sharon, can you please introduce yourself to our listening audience?
Hello, everyone. I'm Sharon Joyner. As Tish said, we are sisters. We both attend the same church, Miracle
Yes,
City Church, where we
yes,
met. And over the years, we have really developed a close relationship, an honest relationship, and
yes,
a real friendship where we
yes,
lift each other up. We
indeed.
lift each other up.
Sharon, you came to Maryland by way of New York
Yes. New
State, New
Yorker.
York, New York, New York, New York. And I'm so glad that you are here in Maryland because
Me
you're
too.
just You are just full of life. I'm not even a Marylander, but I'm just grateful that I can learn from you. A lot of people who live in that New York area, they're so international,
Yes.
they're
It's the
able
melting
to,
pot, really. It is.
yeah, they
It
can
is.
they can jive and move and coexist and just thrive in all spaces. And so I would love for you, our first question asks, this is our love series. We're ending it up. You are wrapping it up.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
you have been married, you have been divorced, then married to the man of your
Yep.
dreams. Woo woo! Yes, please share a little of your first marriage and even more of the bliss of your second marriage.
Okay. So my first marriage was my high school sweetheart. We actually lived next door to each other, like two houses away.
Oh,
So
wow.
he was kind of like the bad boy that moved on the block, the exciting one. All the other block boys was, like, ugh. And this one, just had that energy because this family was really from the streets, okay?
Okay.
So he
Okay.
had a whole different kind of vibe. And
Mhm.
then, we dated from like all through high school.
Mhm.
And then my last year of high school, we actually got married. But that
Wow.
didn't last long because his mother really didn't like me.
Oh,
And
no.
her and my mother had some kind of
Beef.
childhood rivalry that I
Oh
didn't
my
even know about till I
gosh!
was later on
Wow!
in life, that
Oh
they didn't
my
like
gosh!
each other. So that kind of like it didn't end well. My son was less than a year old when we split. But I
Wow.
realized that at that early age, because literally I had my son right after I graduated high school, like a
Mhm.
month later. So I literally got pregnant my last year of high school,
Mhm.
and we got married. He was
Mhm.
in the service. He went in the service. So we was in the service. And then when my son was born,
Mhm.
somehow this person who's no longer here, so I won't speak ill of them, um, got kicked out of the service. So all the benefits went. We were supposed to
Mhm.
go to San Diego, live on
Mhm.
base,
Mhm.
oceanfront, town and all like
Yeah.
that. And that was my dream. I was like, okay, good, have the baby. I'm getting on a
Mhm.
plane and I'm gonna be in
Mhm.
California. And my
Mhm.
aunt lived in California. She had been
Mhm.
out there for years. So I was like, that's gonna be cool,
Mhm.
go to school and all like that, on base and all like that. But
Mhm.
that never happened. So I was, like, my son was like maybe almost a year, and
Mhm.
we like broke up. He was like, his mother had convinced him that, and it's sad to say, but his mother had convinced him, but that's not your kid, and blase, blase,
Oh,
blase.
wow.
So that's how that went down. So I realized then that, what, he's not for me. And I'm not going to raise a man when I have a son. And I never looked back. I
Wow.
just never looked back.
Wow.
And it was hard to deal with at being at such a young age, especially when that's your childhood sweetheart and you grow up and you think that forever means forever, and that's always going to be the person. And then you have to raise a son,
Mhm.
and not speak ill of that person to your child, even though that person has wounded you.
Yes.
And I was lucky to have my grandparents because, my mother was there, my grandparents, we all grew up in the same house.
Mhm.
And my grandparents always used to tell me, especially my grandmother, she's like, whatever happens, You don't speak negative or ill of that parent, no matter what
Yes.
happened between you. You don't do that to your child. And
Yeah.
that's hard sometimes because you're walking around with a wound trying to heal yourself. And then
Yeah.
you have this little person
Mm-hmm.
who's a little copy in their own
Oh
way
my
of
gosh.
that person.
Yeah.
Those tendencies and those traits come through. And
Yeah.
then you be like, oh, really?
Wow.
Okay. And then, they'll do things and you be like, ooh. Oh, but
Mhm.
they got it naturally. You know what I'm saying? Don't
Yes.
take it out on them. So that's how that first one went. And then when I moved to Maryland in
Mhm.
90, I moved to Maryland in 93, the year that big snowstorm came.
Mhm.
Okay. And I met my second husband the following year,
Mhm.
that summer of the following year. So that would have made it 94 because I came the end of
Mhm.
93.
Mhm.
And I came in October.
Mhm.
And my great aunt, my grandmother's sister, because I lived with my cousin Ronnie, which was her son, she
Mhm.
was like, I swear you brought that blizzard with you because we've never had weather like this. She blamed the whole blizzard on me. Okay. You come from New York with all that. So that was her running joke with me for years. Sharon
Mhm.
brought all that snow down here.
Mhm.
And that summer I met my second husband.
Mhm.
His name is Bruce.
Mhm.
And it was the summer and I remember I said a prayer that day. Before I left the house to go to work, I remember saying, you know what, God, whoever you have for me, or whoever the next person is to be in my life, because I wasn't dating. I had to come down here and hit the ground running because I
Mhm.
knew I was going to bring my son down.
Mhm.
So I didn't have any time to like socialize. I just took jobs and started saving my money because I had a time frame to get him down here.
Mhm.
You know, it would be for high school because when I left New York, he was like going from the seventh into the eighth. So I had like a good year and a half to get it together.
Mhm.
So I hit the ground running, had to learn the whole area. I was used to a city that transportation ran
Yeah.
24/7,
Yeah.
365. And I came
Yeah.
down here and they was like, what do you mean the trains stopped running at
Mhm.
12? What do you mean the
Mhm.
buses stopped? Don't, what do you mean? So that took me a lot to navigate through. And I
Mhm.
wasn't driving at the time. So I had to really, really, I lived in Landover. So I had to learn how to land over to DC, to Virginia, all on a, metro
Wow.
stuff. And then I met my husband that following summer. And it was funny how I met him because I remember saying that prayer. I said, God, I'm going to see something in that person's eyes that I've never seen in any man's eye.
Wow.
And I walked out the door and I just said, okay. And I was walking up Warner Avenue. I can't remember the street. Now it's in Landover. And I was walking to work. And I remember going into Dunkin' Donuts. And when I went into Dunkin' Donuts, it's funny. And I was coming out of Dunkin' Donuts. There was this guy standing in the door, and he was like frozen in the door. He was in between the indoor and the outdoor, and he was just standing there. And I was like, okay, he's weird. And I was like, maybe one of those St. Eats people got out this morning. They're looking for him.
Oh
And
my.
then the next thing I knew, I had crossed the street and he jumps out the car and he's like, wait, 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 wait. And I was like, oh, I really want my coffee this morning and I think I'm going to have to throw it at this person. And he
Oh
jumped out the car. He's like, wait, wait, I just got to ask you something. I just got to ask you something. And I was like, okay, he was a safe distance. He didn't like run up on me.
mhm.
And he's like, do you always walk out the house like that with that much confidence? And I was
Mhm.
like, well, you never heard that one before.
Mhm.
That's original. But I
Mhm.
saw something in his eyes when he said
Mhm.
that I never saw. And his eyes were literally twinkling and smiling. And I was like, did you just answer my prayer in like 10 minutes? Because it only took me 10 minutes to walk to work.
Oh
And
wow.
we exchanged numbers. And later on, we talked that evening. We talked for a really long time. And we just bonded. We clicked. There was just something there. But when I
Mhm.
met him, he was in the process of finalizing his divorce.
Mm.
They was like at that 1 year separation when you have to be separated for 1 year
Mhm.
before the state of Maryland. So that was another thing to contend with. He had three daughters, and I had my son. I hadn't brought my son down yet. So that's how we met. But we really had a connection. As soon as we met, we had a connection. It was like a pull I never felt before. It was just like I tell anybody when it's right, you just know.
Mhm.
It's no words to describe. It's like so innate within you that you know that that's the mate that you're supposed
Mhm.
to be with. You
Wow.
just know.
Wow.
And that's how I met. That's how I met Bruce. That's how I met Bruce.
How long were you married to Bruce?
We had when he died. We had it was 1 week away from our 11th anniversary. He died the week before our 11th anniversary. So we were together. We were married 10, dated 5. So we had 15 good years.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, because we dated for 5. Because I was like, this man is going to need time because he's coming out of a long-term marriage. He married his childhood sweetheart,
Mm-hmm.
grade school, middle school, high school, and then they
Wow.
got married after high school. So I was like, yeah, he needs to get that woman off of him.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then of course, he got to spread his wings and get himself back as a man because my husband was good looking, and it's not like women was he couldn't go nowhere without somebody knowing him. He was really good looking. He was real outgoing. I'm the introverted one, but he was the outgoing one, and he just lit up a room.
I love
Whenever he
it.
walked into the room, he just lit up the room.
I love
He
it.
had that energy about him, and
Mm-hmm.
people would just draw to him. No
Mm-hmm.
matter where we would go, we would try to have dinner privately, and if it was another set of people around us, next thing you know, we're all laughing and joking, and because
That's
he drew that type
awesome.
of energy. You
That's
know,
beautiful.
yeah, he drew that type of energy.
So, so happy that you met Bruce, the man of your dreams.
Yes, 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 yes.
Then, as you've shared, there was a tragedy. Please
Yeah.
tell us about that dreadful day. I mean,
Whew,
when
it's
somebody gets
still
married, they think of happily ever
ever, ever after. And
after.
you think long term, like you're gonna be old, and you're gonna be
Yeah.
gray haired, and I'm gonna have my walker, and you're gonna have your walker,
Yeah.
and we're gonna be
Absolutely.
sitting under a tree somewhere,
Yes.
reminiscing. So we had moved to Glen Burnie, and got a townhouse. We moved to Glen Burnie, so we was there about that was our second year there, and I was packing to go to see my grandkids
Mm-hmm.
in Georgia because I hadn't seen them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And he was grilling, and I was upstairs packing, and he called. He said, "Sharon, come on down. The food's ready." And I went outside because he was taking like the last bit of the food off the grill.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something to me so uncanny and so strange. And he's like, "When I'm going, I want you to go find yourself a tall, long, and lanky guy with dreads because that's how you like him." Because that was always our joke between us. And I said, it hit me in a way that it never, because we used to banter back and forth and joke with each other like that all the time. But when he said it that night, it stuck. I was like, why would you say something like that? And I'm getting ready to go to Atlanta in the morning. I said, that's not funny. He said, no, I mean it, wife. I mean it. They call me wifey. I mean it, wifey. And I was like, And then that was about 7,
Mm-hmm.
little after 7. And then that evening, we ate and everything and had a good time laughing and joking. I finished packing. He was in the room with me and I was packing my stuff because was trying to figure out how I was going to get all the toys. I was taking my
Mm-hmm.
my grandchildren in a suitcase plus my clothes. So I was having a hard time with it. And then we were getting ready to go to bed because I had the flight out that morning. And
Mm-hmm.
he said, "Oh, I left the light on downstairs." And but it didn't dawn on me until after he went down. And I'm like, wait a minute. I was the last person up, so it couldn't have been a light on downstairs. And that's when I heard him. He walked up the stairs and got to the top of the landing, and all I heard was boom. And he had fallen, he had turned and fallen back on the top of the landing. And that's when you know that there's a God in heaven because literally he should have rolled down the stairs and
Mm-hmm.
been laying on the bottom landing.
Mm-hmm.
But he made a 180 turn. So when he landed, his feet, and I have a picture of Jesus that I traveled with me for the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right in front of that picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I just looked up at it, but it felt as though somebody was just holding me. I mean, I called 911, had them on speakerphone doing CPR and all like that, but there was like really no response. I literally, they say when a person dies, you watch the light go out of their eyes. And I literally experienced that.
Wow.
And the ambulance came and everything. They got there real quick, but they called him at 11:59.
Mm-hmm.
11:59. And I was like, 11:59, like 1 minute, 1 minute, 60 seconds more, and it would have been the next day.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, who dies at 11:59? Like a
Mm-hmm.
minute before the next day. But
Mm-hmm.
that was traumatic because it was sudden, it was unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
It was so unexpected. And that took a lot to get through, because the next thing you do is go into function mode. I got to plan for a funeral. So you're just functioning. You're not even mourning. You're just like so in high gear and function. I got to call his daughters. Daughters get to the hospital, you know, and all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to call his brother. He's in PA. Hey, I need you up here with me to help me make these plans, because the sister was a nut job, and I know she's going to push me over the edge. I love my sister-in-law to death, but she was so intense.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, that's not the sibling that helped me get through this. So his brother came up from PA, and then he helped me do all the arrangements to get everything done. And then after it's all over with and it's quiet, that's when it hits you, when you're by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and you find yourself talking out loud, trying to get answers, trying to figure out what's going on. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? You start projects, and then when you turn around, you were doing this, and then you stopped to do something else, and then you were doing that, and then you don't know why you started anything at the same time, because your mind is just racing, 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 racing. But I had a good friend at my job. She
Mm-hmm.
was a young widow too, so she had gone through it maybe 10 years before this happened.
Wow.
And she was the one. Her name is Donna. We're still good friends to this day. She still works at the job. She's
Mm-hmm.
in another department. She
Mm-hmm.
was my supervisor at the time, but I'm in another department. And she was able to literally walk me through that process. She
Wow.
said, "You're going to have so many ranges of emotions."
Mm-hmm.
She said, "One minute you're going to be angry, next minute you're going to be sad, next minute you're not even going to know what's going on." And she just explained, and it is a process. It's a process. But she was always able to tell where I was at on
Mm-hmm.
any given day that I had to go into work. And some days she would just look at me and say, "No, go home. Mm-mm, go home." Because you could just see it. I wasn't going to be able to function.
Mm-hmm.
And she would just look at me and say, "Nah, you go home today. Don't even come in here. Just turn around and go home." And I remember for a long time, my husband and I on Fridays, we used to always, that was our date night. So
Mm-hmm.
Fridays, he was off on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
So Fridays was that he would meet me after work, would meet after work, and he'd pick me up. And we would go to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
We would have fun. And we used to really act like we were dating, like we weren't married. We would act like we were dating, because all the single women would get jealous.
Oh my gosh.
Because y'all would hug on them and tease them, do silly little stuff like that. And that's what we did. So that's the part that bothered me the most, because when Fridays came around, it would hit me like, okay, he's not here. I'm not going to have another date night. And I found myself for the first couple of months, at least till it got cold, because it happened in June.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like from June all the way up to maybe when the weather turned and got cold.
Mm-hmm.
At Fridays, I would find myself at the gravesite putting down flowers,
Wow.
because that was the only connection that I still had.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that routinely, because that was our date night. And we both worked in Laurel. So, we were all up and down Route 1, whatever restaurant we decided we wanted to go to, because we both worked in Laurel.
Mm-hmm.
And that took a while. I would just go to shoppers, get some plant, some nice flowers. And that's how I did Fridays for a long, long time,
How
because
did you handle the grieving? How did you about like was it year two? Like when did you feel like how did
well,
you
I
make it to Sharon that I know today that's just
what helped me too is that my son and his family came up from Georgia, because they said no, mom can't be there alone. You
Mhm.
know, the children's mother, my first set of grandkids mother, they lived up here with me for a long time, and then her and my son split. So she went to Virginia, and then from Virginia she went to Georgia,
Mhm.
and then they kind of reconciled for a while. And they was like, "Nah," she called me. She's like, "Nah, we coming up, because you can't be up there alone. Bruce ain't there, and we don't want you alone." So they came back up here with me, and it was my grandkids, having my grandkids and my family around me, that got me through it,
Praise God.
because I hadn't joined the church yet. I hadn't found out about the church yet,
Mhm.
So it was actually, so coming home to my grandkids every day, the
Yeah.
four of them, that kept me going. And my oldest
Mhm.
grandson made me this. I still have it. He made me this. He made me a Mr. Bruce. I came home one day, and
Aww.
he had this little the little boards that they can write on and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, he made that, and that was the body, and he had a face and the arms and the
Wow.
legs. And he came home and he had a little heart. He said, if you lift that up, there go his heart because he still
Aw.
loves me. And he said, I just want you to keep this because that's Mr. Bruce. And you know, it was little things like that. But having my grandkids and my family and then my girlfriend, that's what brought me through. That's what brought me through because my grandkids kept my mind going and act. It didn't let me dwell on it because it was for them. And it was always something. It was nana, 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 all at the same time. Nana, nana, nana. So that's what really, really, and that's again that you know that there's God's grace. Because I would have just been here alone in Maryland dealing with, but there's like, nah, we going back. We going back home. So that was like almost a 2-year process. And
Wow.
I'm thankful for that.
Wow. I thank God for seeing you through for your son and his family who just helped you to
Mm-hmm.
realize that you're loved. You're not in it by yourself.
Right.
If there's a lady listening right now who has lost her husband or who has suffered loss, what words of encouragement can you impart to her?
Well, let me just share this and then I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew, I knew
Mm-hmm.
when something is ripped away from you like that, you don't know. It's just like your other half is gone.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew whatever I did, don't question God why.
Awesome. Love it.
Because I knew if I was to start to think like that, then whatever little bit of faith I had left at that moment, that was going to be the enemy's way in to totally separate me. Because
Yes.
you're already saying, what did you let just happen?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we had this all planned,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And the first one was horrible, and I didn't get married to 18 years later because I said I would never remarry until my son was an adult,
Yes. Yes.
you know. And I'm in the best part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
We both now got grandkids. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So I just needed to say that because that was very, very important. Because if
Absolutely.
I would have allowed myself to start questioning why,
Yes.
I would have lost whatever little faith
And I
that.
want to I want to add something right there. Thank you, Holy Spirit, and for you in holding on to that. I think it's important, and I think I guess I can just segue to that question and kind of do a hybrid. God is jealous.
Mm-hmm.
God
Mm-hmm.
created us. God
Yeah.
loves us.
Yeah.
God said He's a jealous God, and we can have nothing before
Right.
Him. So
Exactly.
I'm so grateful that you didn't question God because God loved Bruce more than you did.
Yeah. And I
And He
had to
sent
realize.
His only son to die so that he could be saved, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I'm
Exactly.
grateful that you were able to just, even not understanding,
Right.
still having a reverence for God
Mm-hmm.
in the midst of it all. That's
And
powerful. That's deep.
so if what I can honestly tell anyone who may have just lost a spouse, was whether it be male or female,
Hmm.
is to know that that was a true gift that you had.
Yes.
That person was a gift. You didn't pick that person. That person was chosen for you, and you were chosen for that person. And
Yeah.
it's a gift
Hmm.
because that's God's love for humanity. He
Yes.
gave Adam, He gave Eve to Adam,
Hmm.
which solidified that trinity between God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and man and woman,
Hmm.
and then their offspring.
Hmm.
So you realize that that person was a gift. And of course, you had good times, bad times, so times, whatever, because every relationship has that. But
Hmm.
that bond and that sacredness, because marriage is sacred,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's the most precious gift that He gives us after giving us our own life.
Yes.
That was a true gift, and it's not until I think you have maybe gone through something like this,
Hmm.
because see, with a divorce, the person is still there. If you want to pick the phone up and say, you know what, you were so rotten to me,
Hmm.
click.
Yeah.
But when a person is no longer there, there's nothing left to be said. So whatever you need to say to your spouse, whoever may be listening that has a spouse, tell
Hmm.
that person how you feel every day.
Hmm.
Be open and honest. Let that person know that you love them. And for all those of us that have lost that special someone,
Hmm.
you have to understand that that love that you have for that person will never die. It's going
That's
to
right.
carry you through,
Yes.
because I still tap into that.
Yes. It's in your heart.
Yeah, I still tap into that. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to carry that and walk with it. And I remember my aunt telling me when he first passed, she said, Sharon, she said, I know it hurts now. She
Mm-hmm.
said, but one day when you think about him, you're only going to remember the good times. You're only
Yeah.
going to remember the happy times. The it will fade. The pain of the loss of the pain. You don't ever, it never not leaves you. You
That's
just
right.
learn how to deal with it.
Yes.
And then the sting from it and the hurt from it and the wound from it starts to heal. And
Mm-hmm.
then the love that you have for that person is what carries you forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize that person was a gift to me.
Yes.
And then you want to honor that gift that God gave you, even though they're not physically here, but you still
Mm-hmm.
carry them in your heart.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you try to share that with the next person that's going through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll know that it's a process. And it's almost like an eternal gift, because love doesn't die.
Yes. Yeah.
Love doesn't die. And you grow from it. You're going to change. You start to realize that, okay, this was a tradition we may have, but you know what? I don't have to right now because it doesn't pertain to it. And then some things you hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that you hold on to is going to be that love.
Yes. Yes. Wow. That's deep
Hmm.
to just know that number one, not to question God. Number
Don't.
two, value the spouse that you have now, even if they get
Yes.
on your nerves, appreciate them. If, God forbid, you've lost a spouse, to know that you will make it through, God is with you.
Yes.
And that you'll always have that special person in your heart because love never dies. I love it.
Yes.
Can
Love.
you believe we have 3 minutes left, girl?
Wow, that went fast.
Yes, it really, really did. It really, really did. I would love to know for the final question, thinking of your 15 years with Bruce, together with him, what were the three greatest accomplishments of your matrimony, your togetherness, your covenant?
Okay. So when I first met him, he told me that I, what he used to say? Patience, first of all, because I had no patience. So he had to teach me how to just really start having patience.
Mhm.
Because I was a hothead. I pew, I'm up in the air, ceiling, stratosphere.
I cannot imagine that at all, Sharon.
Yeah, no, really, it's been a process. Tell me, if you would have met me like 13 years ago, I was a totally different person. Like, what
Wow.
would you say to me? What you looking at? I was
Wow.
a hothead. I had a short fuse. I had a
Wow.
short fuse. So he really taught me how to have patience. He taught me that how to navigate, because I would get angry so quick or whatever. He taught me how I had to navigate through situations.
Mhm.
Okay. But I think the most important thing and the most precious thing out of my marriage
Mhm.
was that he helped me to heal in the broken places. That's
Wow.
why I said that person is a gift,
Yeah.
because it wasn't after, until he was gone and wasn't in my life anymore, that I can see all the broken places that God had put him into my life to help me heal.
Wow. Wow. That's
I
deep.
was a broken person when he met me because I had so
Wow.
much trauma, so
Wow.
much disappointment, okay?
Wow.
So much not trusting in me,
Mm.
that he was the person that helped me navigate, process, get through it. I didn't know this during the marriage.
Mhm.
It wasn't until retrospect, and I looked from who I was when I met him
To who you are
to
now.
who I was when he left, and saw the growth, but then realized that all those wounds that I walked into that relationship with over the time had healed,
Amen.
had
Amen.
healed. So yeah, that was the most important gift that God gave me through my husband. It was the healing. It was the healing that I needed.
Wow. That's deep. That
Hmm.
is powerful.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you had any final words for anyone who has suffered a loss of love, what would it be?
Find yourself a good support group, because I went to a support group. You have to find a support group so you can share, because only someone who has walked through that
Yes.
is going to understand.
Mm-hmm.
But hold on to God. I remember, Tish, having to go to the Bible and read about widows because there's no one who could tell you
Wow.
how to be a widow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I need to know what God said a widow is to be and what are we to do, because you're not single. A
Yeah.
lot of people think, oh, you're a widow and you're single. No, you're not single. You are total at the other spectrum of that,
Mm-hmm.
because you've had the chance to be the wife. You've
Mm-hmm.
had the chance to be that other person's better half. You
Mm-hmm.
have that. So you don't go back to being single.
Mm-hmm.
And God honors widows. And it tell you, don't mess with the orphans and the widows. Don't
That's
come
right.
against them. Don't
That's
mistreat
right.
them.
That's right.
And it even tells you that, if you're a young widow,
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to remarry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you don't be idle and getting into a whole lot of mess.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an older widow, you know, you're supposed to be a part of your community, be a
Mm-hmm.
part of your church.
Yes.
Give yourself,
Yes.
give of yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
I had to go to scripture because no one can tell you how to be a widow. So I said, God, what am I supposed to do with this? Because I
Mm-hmm.
ain't single. I can't jump back out there, because
Mm-hmm.
that ain't my life. I've gone through
Yes.
that,
Yes. Yes.
and I think a lot of women need to be careful of that, because when you're a widow, you're in an honored place in God's eye and heart.
Yes.
And
Yes.
he covers you.
Yes, he does.
He has you covered, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to honor that, but you have to accept that about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Although he may have taken my spouse, and that goes for men too, because we're all covered under that.
That's right.
We're special people in his eyes. His words
Absolutely.
say that he
Absolutely.
holds us in a special place,
Yes.
and we have to honor that. We
Yes.
have to honor that, and just learn to. And you finally get back to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the new old Christine, that show. You meet yourself again, but you're a better person.
Yes. Yes.
You got some who I've accomplished some things. I got some things worked
Absolutely.
out. I'm a better person. I can handle more
Absolutely.
things. And
Yes.
then you have the experience where you can help the next person when they go through it and be with them.
Sharon, thank you so, so
Thank you for
much.
giving me the opportunity.
Of
I think this is the most
course,
I've spoken on this ever, outside of
girl.
Sabbath school.
Girl, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you,
I know that
Tish.
you've touched someone. You
I hope.
are, you
I hope.
are, I'm thinking of just the gem that you've come even more shiny or even more polished as a result of being in Bruce's care and his love,
Yeah. Yep.
right? He
Yep.
has healed you, he has loved on you, he's left you in a better place. And I just thank you for encouraging our listeners who have had loss to do likewise, to trust God through the process and know that
Yes.
he
First and
is your
foremost,
spouse forever and he will
ever.
never leave you or forsake you. Thank you again, listeners. Again, God is love. He loves you. He will provide for
All
you.
the
He will
time.
always be with you. And
Yes.
until next time, keep shining. Toodles.